The Big Postman Pat Storybook. Stories by John Cunliffe. Pictures by Celia Berridge. From the original television designs by Ira Wood. And read aloud by me, the new storyteller, for SuperDogLover1. Postman Pat's Treasure Hunt. Pat is the Greendale postman. Every day he drives his red van up the valley, twisting along the twining roads, up and over the hills, far away down narrow lanes and tracks to farms and cottages, by village, school and church, along by lakes and streams. He goes all over the valley. Everyone is glad to see him. He brings letters and cards, newspapers and magazines. He brings football pools and catalogues and bills and birthday cards, parcels full of who knows what. He also brings a smile, a joke or a chat, news of the valley, and who's doing what. He's cheerful and friendly and brightens every day. He has a little black cat called Jess. Jess rides in the basket next to Pat. Jess keeps an eye on things. Each morning, Pat collects the day's post from the village post office. Mrs. Goggins sorts the letters and parcels ready for Pat to deliver, as well as looking after the shop. One sunny spring morning, Pat walked into the post office with a "Good morning, Mrs. Goggins." "Good morning to you, Pat," said Mrs. Goggins, "and a busy one, too. Just look at all these letters and parcels, and most of them for young Kate and Tom Partridge, it seems," said Pat. "Well, of course, it's their birthday," said Mrs. Goggins, smiling. "So it is," said Pat. Mrs. Partridge was busy icing the cake yesterday. Aren't they lucky? How excited they'll be when they see all their cards and parcels. I'll be on my way. They'll be looking out for me. Goodbye." "Goodbye, Pat." Pat began the day's round. His first stop was at the village school. It was a very small school. There were only 12 children in it. Most of them came in a minibus that collected them from the farms and cottages. They arrived early, long before Mr. Pringle, the headmaster, drove up in his old Morris Minor. Pat arrived early too. The children were playing in the yard. They came running up to Pat. Each one had something to tell him, and Pat usually had a joke to tell, or something to tease them with. Bill Thompson was the eldest, and it was his job to look after the school's letters till Mr. Pringle arrived. This morning someone gave him a push, and he dropped the letters. Oh dear! Right in a puddle. He began to run. He wiped them on his shirt and made a lovely inky pattern all down his front. Sarah Gilbertson was showing Pat a fossil, so he didn't notice. Then Sarah and Lucy Selby asked Pat if he was good at hopscotch, as they had just had new lines painted in the yard. Well, it's a long time since I played, said Pat, doubtfully. He had a try. Anyway, he was quite good at it. But it made his postman's head roll up and down. He was enjoying the hopscotch so much that he almost forgot the time. Good gracious, he said, looking at his watch. I'll have to be off. The post mustn't be late enough today of all days. What's special about today? Asked the server. Wait and see, said Pat. Cheerio. I'll see you tomorrow. A little further along the road, Pat turned in at the gates of Greendale Farm. As soon as they heard Pat's van, Kate and Tom Partridge came running out to meet him. When they saw the pile of letters and parcels in Pat's arms, all for them, they couldn't wait to open them. As they are twins, it was a double birthday. Mrs. Partridge came out with a pair of scissors, and they sat down on the grass and snipped their parcels open. They had some lovely presents, but Katie did not seem pleased with hers. What's up with Katie? Said Pat. She's wrong side out today, said Mrs. Partridge. She's lost Sarah Ann. Is that the little doll she takes to school? She takes it everywhere, said Mrs. Partridge. She's lost without it. I don't know what we'll do if it doesn't turn up. Oh, it's sure to turn up somewhere, said Pat. The trouble is, it could be almost anywhere, said Mrs. Partridge. We went to see Aunt Alice yesterday and called at ever so many places on the way. She could have left it just anywhere. I'll look for it, said Pat. You never know. I might spot Sarah Ann in my travels. I'm good at finding things. Poor Katie. She does look sad. I'll do my best. Don't you worry now. Cheerio. Pat was on his way again in his red van. He told Jess about the lost doll. Where could Sarah Ann be? Jess looked thoughtful and kept a sharp lookout for any wandering dolls. As they travelled from farm to farm, he could catch mice in the dark, so surely he could catch a doll in broad daylight. The next stop was the church. The Reverend Timms had heard Pat's van coming and was looking out to see if there were any letters today. There was a card for him from his Aunt Joan on holiday in Mallorca. Pat told him about Katie's lost doll. She could have left it in the church, said the Reverend Timms. She always brings it. Seeking out shall find. Let's have a look. Mind your head. They searched among the pews, looking under the seats, lifting hazzards, moving piles of hymn books, creeping about and popping up in unexpected places. There were so many places to look in a church. At last the Reverend did find something, but it wasn't Sarah Ann. It was a lady's glove. Let me see. I think I know that glove, said Pat. Look. It has letters sewn inside. D.T. Dorothy Thompson. That's whose it must be. I'll take it along for her. She will be pleased. Well, I hope Katie's doll turns up, said the Reverend Timms. Let the Lord guide you. All will be well. Yes, we'll keep looking till we find it, said Pat. Thanks, Sophie. Goodbye. Pat drove up the steep hill to Thompson Ground. Mrs. Thompson was surprised when Pat gave her a glove with her letters. "Well, I never," she said. "Where did you find a glove? I've been looking everywhere for it." Then Pat told her about Kate's lost doll. "We were looking in the church for it, and the Reverend found your glove instead. Well, Katie and the mum did call in for a cup of tea on Monday. She could have left her doll here. Perhaps it's under cushion. We'd better have a look." They searched everywhere. They lifted cushions, looked under chairs and behind chairs. They peered behind the television set and amongst the coats that hung on the back of the door. They even moved the sideboard out from the wall to see if Sarah Ann had slipped down the back. It was no good. They didn't find Kate's doll. But Mrs. Thompson found a knife down the side of a chair. "That's Ted Glenn's knife," said Pat. "It's his rabbiting knife. Goodness knows when he left it here. He hasn't been here since last Christmas," said Mrs. Thompson. "I'll take it along for him," said Pat. "He will be pleased to have it back. I hope you find Kate's doll," said Mrs. Thompson. "We'll keep looking. See you tomorrow. Cheerio." "Cheerio, Pat." Pat drove down the steep and winding road and along the valley to Ted Glenn's cottage. Jess kept a sharp lookout for the lost doll. "What a day," said Pat. "We found a glove and a knife, but no Sarah Ann. I wonder if we will find her. I do hope so." Jess twitched his whiskers hopefully. Ted Glenn was delighted to see his knife. He couldn't guess where Pat had found it. Pat told him about Kate's lost doll. Ted said, "They popped in yesterday with a lamp they wanted mending. She could have left a doll here." So they went to have a look in Ted's workshop. What a jumble it was. There were things everywhere, all the things that people had brought to be mended. There were toys and television sets, cookers and cake stands, bikes, roller skates, farm machines, and house machines, more than you could count. Goodness knows when Ted would mend them all. Likely enough, most of them had been quite forgotten by their owners. And what a dreadful place it was in which to seek a doll. There were so many things that they could hardly move. They lifted things, they fell over things, things fell on them, they moved things, they pushed things, they looked over things, they looked round things, under things, behind things, between things, beside things. They did not find Sarah Ann, but Ted found a watch that he'd mended and forgotten about. "That's Miss Hubbard's," he said. "She brought it to be fettled last Christmas. Could you take it along for her, Pat? She'll be needing it." "Certainly. I'm going that way." "I hope you find the doll," said Ted. "So do I," said Pat. "I seem to be able to find plenty of other things." Pat drove along the valley to Southland's farm cottage, where Miss Hubbard lives. The mobile shop was already there, and Miss Hubbard was doing her shopping, filling a basket with groceries. She was pleased to see Pat, and even more pleased when he handed her a watch with her letters. Though she couldn't guess where Pat had found it, Sam came to see what they were talking about and to add up Miss Hubbard's shopping. Sam drives the mobile shop, so Pat told them both about Katie's lost doll, but they hadn't seen it. Poor Katie, said Pat, and on her birthday too. I'll buy her a box of chocolates to cheer her up. As we haven't found her, Anne, Pat took a box of chocolates from the shelf of the mobile shop. There was something else on the shelf, a squashed up something that had been behind the box of chocolates. What's that? Said Pat. Behind your chocolates? I don't know, said Sam. It's nothing I put there. Pat pulled the bundle out and straightened it and smoothed it. I know what it is, he said. It's a doll, said Miss Hubbard. I don't sell dolls, said Sam. It isn't a new one, said Miss Hubbard. It's Katie's doll, said Pat. There's a name sewn in the skirt. It must be Sarah Ann, the one we've been looking for all day. Sam was amazed. That young Katie Partridge, he said. She gets everywhere. I'll take the chocolates anyway, said Pat. They'll make a nice birthday present. Just guarded Sarah Ann all the way back to Katie's farm. He wasn't going to let her slip away again. And when Pat arrived at the twins' birthday party with Sarah chocolates, Katie smiled promptly the first time that day. She hugged Sarah Ann and Pat and Jess and said thank you to them all. Pat just had to join in the party and Jess sat beside him. There was tea and cakes for Pat and a sauce of cream for Jess. It was a good party. Then Pat looked at his watch and said, time we were going. Goodbye, everyone. Have a good time. Goodbye, Pat, goodbye, everyone called. And off went Pat and Jess in their red van. Pat still had to collect the letters from the letterbox and tell Mrs. Goggins all about his treasure hunt for the lost doll. Note: in Postman Pat special delivery service, the new series created in 2008, the van with Royal County Arm Mail is still with us.